Heroes are an inspiring group of people. Every one of them, from the larger-than-life comic book heroes you see on the big silver screen to the everyday heroes that let us live the privileged lives we do. Every hero has a story to tell. The doctor saving lives at your local hospital, the war veteran down the street who risked his lives for our freedom, the police officers and firefighters who risk their safety to ensure ours. Every hero is special and every story worth telling, but there is one class of heroes that I think is often ignored. The entrepreneur, the creator, the producer, the ones who look at the problems in this world and think to themselves, you know what? I can fix that. I can help people, and I can make a difference. Then they go out and do exactly that by creating a new product or introducing a new service. Some go on to change the world, others make a world of difference to their customers. Welcome to The Hero Show. Join us as we pull back the masks of the world's finest heropreneurs and learn the secrets to their powers, their success, and their influence, so you can use those secrets to attract more sales, make more money, and experience more freedom in your business. I'm your host, Richard Matthews, and we are on in 3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome back to The Hero Show. My name is Richard Matthews, and I'm on the line today with Jason Wright. Jason, are you there?
I'm here.
Awesome. So glad to have you here, Jason. Let's do a quick introduction so my audience knows who you are, and then we'll get into your story. So Jason Wright is the founder of Intentionally Inspirational, which is a digital agency that offers sales funnel strategy, design, development, and management, specialize in active campaign, ClickFunnels, and of course, Facebook ads. And essentially you help companies get more leads in sales, and you work hard to demystify all of that lingo. So let me start off with basically, what's your business like now? Why do people come to you? What's your, your ideal audience, so to speak, and what do you do for them?
All right. So what was the first part of that question?
What's your business like? What's your business like now?
Yeah, it's good. It's, it's got a piece, that is, monthly recurring business. It could be clients, it could be affiliate stuff related to what I do. There's always a piece that's consulting and project based. And, you just, after you work with people for a while, you get that nice, that repeat business and that referral business. So it's predictable, but it's predictably unpredictable as well. I keep getting to do what I love and keep making more money doing it and helping people at greater levels do it month over month. So enjoying this ride pretty well, my friend. Something else interesting about us is you notice the name is kind of unique. It didn't start as a digital agency, but the content we create for us and for our clients is inspirational in nature where it makes sense. So we talk about entrepreneurship, we talk about digital marketing, but we do it in a way that we make people believe that they can really accomplish what we know they can believe through what we're talking about. Because as you know, that mindset piece is one of the biggest challenges in entrepreneurship at all levels. So something that we care about quite a bit.
Absolutely. So who's your target market? What kind of clients do you bring on to do the funnel building and digital strategy for?
Yeah, so we don't target by niche like a lot of businesses do. We are platform specific, which is kind of our niche. Ideally, I like to work with clients that already have established products and services. You've probably had these conversations of businesses that aren't quite sure how they're going to make money yet because of some different circumstances they may be running with. But yeah, I like working with that entrepreneur that's doing at least 100,000 revenue or more, has already had some success, but looking to fine tune and optimize that and do more online for sure. Seems to be a good fit in that place.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the platforms you mentioned, you spend a lot of time with ClickFunnels and ActiveCampaign.
Yep. ActiveCampaign in the last 6 months is, for whatever reason, kind of become that front runner. But the thing I like about it, I teach funnels. Like, you've got the front end, which I like ClickFunnels for. You've got the back end, which I like ActiveCampaign for. And obviously you have the traffic piece as well. Generally, when I talk to people for the first time, they're aware of a piece of that equation being out of whack. But a lot of times, as you know, it leads to the other areas as well. So I try to talk about it in very simple terms and, help people get those pieces built and get them flowing correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a huge fan of ActiveCampaign myself. I do a high-level training on it for a lot of different groups.
Yep.
And, you say for whatever reason it's become the front runner. I think the reason is they've built the best campaign builder on the market. So it's far easier to use than pretty much every other system there ever was. And you can build really, really nice automations in it. So
oh yeah,
I'm sure you're aware of all of that since that's what you do professionally. So What I talk about now is your origin story, like how you got into this space, how you got started as a business owner. All right, we talk on the show. Every hero has their origin story. It's where you started to realize that you were different, that maybe you had superpowers, and maybe you could use them to help other people. How did that happen for you? How did you get into becoming an entrepreneur? And have you always been an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I guess I kind of give you the mid to longer story because it's necessary. So back when I was 14, I loved to fish. Fishing was my favorite thing in the world. And at a certain point, my mom said, you know what, you have enough tackle. You have enough lures and enough poles that, like, I'm not going to buy you anymore. I was like, but that's not going to work because there's new stuff that comes out every year and I want more. So she's like, figure out a way to make
That's
money
accurate.
then, I guess, you know. So I started looking around and I said, what can I do to generate cash right now so I can buy more lures? Well, I had a few neighbors. We lived in a cul-de-sac. I had a few neighbors across from me, next to me, and a little bit over. They never really cut their grass. Like, it was always like, does anybody live there? And then every so often it'd get cut. So I just went and knocked on some doors one day. I said, hey, can I cut your grass? And if I do a good job, can I do it every week? And all three people I knocked on said, yeah. So I borrowed my father-in-law's lawn tractor and started making $75 a week at 13 years old.
Well, there you go.
So, with no bills or anything, that's a lot of money for fishing tackle back in the 90s. So that was kind of my first taste of it. And then I started working outside of school, at 14. Obviously, that was just a job, but I always liked to work hard and get paid for it. And then after high school, again, I was changing oil in a garage for like $6 an hour. It was awful work. I hated it. And I was like, I can do better than this. So I started another landscaping company, grew it over 7 years. It was my full-time job. I was in college, loved the freedom of my time, kind of. Loved the unlimited potential and the creativity with what I could do there. And then everybody told me, you need to go to college. You need to get a degree. You need to do this path. And I don't know why, but I listened and did that for about 7 years. And I was kind of in HR and sales. And I said, you know what, I'm too young to be this miserable. Like, I don't want to do this. So a few years ago, I took a leap from corporate America, chasing money. I basically was going to start these neighborhood magazines, and it failed horribly. I told my wife, I said, we've got 6 months of savings in the bank, and quit my job and went and bought a luxury car. Just made all kinds of mistakes, and within a few months I was out of money and really, really unhappy. So had to go back to corporate America. And then basically Intentionally Inspirational came to me one night. I woke up and I said, I don't know what this means, but I know it's going to change my life. And I don't know why or how. So I started blogging. I didn't really know who I was blogging to, but it was kind of about entrepreneurship, forget the 9 to 5, that kind of stuff. And I started getting some responses, people, I needed to hear that, or this is really good, or things like that. But I was like, there's no money in this. So how do I get this in front of more people? How do I grow a list? So I kind of figured out some digital marketing on my own. And then when I realized other people needed help with it, then kind of the light bulb went off. So that's kind of the high
Like
level.
how it got started.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Then over time, I've just kind of pivoted where the opportunities have been and where my strengths have been as well. So.
Yeah. And, it sounds like our stories parallel a little bit. I started my first business at 13 as well, selling candy bars on campus before I got shut down for not having a business license. But yeah, I've made like $1,500 before
Wow.
they shut me down. Yeah. So it was really good. But yeah, and I paid my way through college as a photographer. So doing a service business like landscaping and stuff like that. And then started my consulting practice after college, and have been growing it for 15 years now. So yeah, it's very, very similar that we've ended up in that space. I never did go through the blogging stuff. I'm still in that process of like, I need to figure out how to get my message out more. That's actually one of the reasons why I put this podcast together, was to just force myself to constantly be talking to cool people and putting out good content for people. So
Yep.
Absolutely. So my next question for you is your superpower, and superpower is basically it's the thing that you bring to bear in your business that you think is unique to you, that you really it really helps build or solve problems for your clients. The thing you use to slay this world's villain, so to speak. If you could nail that down and say, hey, this is a superpower, this is what I bring my clients that they can't get anywhere else. What do you think that is?
Yeah, I think with my clients, the thing that's unique to me is I can speak to anybody. I can communicate at anybody's level of understanding and keep things very simple. But I think I can also get people really excited and give them belief that, hey, maybe you've tried this 5 or 6 times with different people and it hasn't worked, but it's going to work this time. So I'm really, really good at building rapport quickly. Some very authentic, very transparent. Got a great track record. So I bring people in really close. I'm really good at that relationship building piece. And part of that is, inspiring confidence and getting results as well. So.
Yeah. And so when it comes to doing that, have you found that when you bring someone in close and you can get them to, I don't know, take chances they might not otherwise take, that you see them make major leaps in their business?
Yeah. When people are willing to listen to what I have to say. So, as well as I do, sometimes people have all their own ideas, and it's like, if they're not going to trust you to run with some things, they're going to limit their opportunities sometimes. So if people will actually do what you tell them to do and give things a shot, yeah, people can make some big leaps for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other side of your superpower, we talk about is your fatal flaw, right? It's the thing
Yep.
that holds you back. So Superman has his kryptonite. Batman's not actually a superhero. He's just rich and dedicated, right? That's probably unfair to Batman. He's totally a superhero, but he doesn't have any supernatural powers, is my point.
Yep.
So my question is, what is something that has held you back in your business, something that you've struggled with that you have to work on? And I think more importantly, how have you worked on that so other people who might struggle with something similar could learn from you?
Yeah, this is one that people are going to resonate with. So it took me a while to identify it, but shiny object syndrome combined with a lack of patience. So the first, so we just hit 4 years in business. The first, I don't know, year to 18 months, we didn't really make any money, and I couldn't figure out why. I was like, why is this business not making any money? And then one day I stopped, and I think I was actually listening to Gary Vee, and he was saying something in a much more colorful way that boils down to stop focusing on the things that don't matter. I was like, what is he talking about? I started realizing that I was focusing on all these different areas of my business that were fun, but they didn't translate into revenue. So I was like, I'm not going to worry about the logo. I'm not going to worry about this stuff. I'm going to focus on finding the business, selling the business, and bringing in the revenue. And when I started to focus on the money making stuff and stopped looking at every new program and all this stuff that people like to do that doesn't matter, things started to change for me. And the other piece along with that lesson that I learned is, like I told you, when I quit corporate America the first time, I thought I was going to go from 0 to 80 grand in revenue in 3 months. And I don't know where I came up with that number, but I went from 0 to 0 in 3 months.
Yeah.
What I learned was the timeline is not up to me. The timeline is, Les Brown says, how is none of your business. It doesn't matter how. And you can't put a time on it. You can say, I need this to happen in 6 months. It doesn't mean it's going to. So once I became patient and I started to prepare for opportunities not yet seen, then when things did come along that I'd never seen I was ready for, I could make things happen. So patience is a piece of that, and staying focused on the most important stuff.
Yeah, they say luck favors the prepared, right? You
Absolutely.
got to actually be ready for the opportunities when they come by. I think that's a really important lesson. I know something that I struggled with for a long time as well is that whole shiny object syndrome, and it's a hard thing because especially when you're a beginning entrepreneur, you have a skill set gap, right?
Yep.
And you have the ability, especially today, to go and fill in the gaps with training. And the problem that I ran into was I would like to learn a thing and then go and learn a thing and then not do anything with that learning.
Mm-hmm.
So you end up with all these untested, knowledge skill sets instead of like real world skill sets.
Yep.
And that's how you go from 0 to 0 in 3 months, right? Is
Yep.
by learning a bunch of stuff and not doing anything with it, right?
Correct.
Not doing the revenue producing activities, so to speak.
Yep.
Yeah. And I guess one of the things that I've learned, I'm curious if you've sort of learned the same thing, is like you have this whole like library of potential skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize that the money is going to come when you focus on something that you can really bring a unique set of skills to.
Absolutely. And the thing that I figured out for me was I had to have this talk with myself, and I guess I'm a fairly proud person. I mean, I never thought of it that way, but I had to have this talk with myself and said, hey, you're never going to be good at these things over here. Like, you might be okay if you work really hard, but this little spot here is where you have the potential to be legendary. And it's connecting with people. It's getting people excited about what we're doing. It is selling the business. It is doing the strategy and the architecture. Like, that's where I'm strong. And then I figured out there's other people that are strong in all these areas where I'm weak. So I need to surround myself with the right kind of team so that we make a strong, complete team. And it sounds easy, but it was like, I almost had to act like I was admitting defeat to myself, but I was like, wait, every organization does this. Like, this is normal. Like, this is the right step. So once I had that talk, I stopped worrying about becoming the best designer in the world, because that's not my skill set. You know, am I decent? I'm decent. Am I a good copywriter? I'm good, but I'm never going to be great. And I don't want to be great. It's too boring for me. I don't want to write copy. I want to talk about where you're at and how to get you where you want to go. And let's make it happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, I totally feel you there. I was like, this last year, December timeframe. So like, right, it's almost 12 months now.
Yeah.
I was having that same conversation with myself. I was a solopreneur, and I did all the copywriting, and I did all the design. I did all the things, you know, because I was 80% good at all of it.
Yeah. Yep.
And I was like, I really needed to figure out how to push myself beyond that, and realized that I needed to let go and bring in other members. And you realize that, you know, they're just as good or better than you are.
Oh yeah.
Right. At designing a copy. Like, one of the things I particularly am terrible at is all of the, I don't know what you would call it. You know, when you have a strategy, like, I'm really good at putting the strategy together. Like, here's all the things that we need to do. And then you have to actually like go out and, you know, click all the buttons and push all the things to make those things happen.
Yep.
That bores the crap out of me.
Yep.
And so I'm terrible at getting those things implemented. So bringing people on that are like, I really like to push the buttons and click the things and get them all done.
Yeah.
Check off all the things on the list. You know, it changes the game for your business when you have people who are strong in those areas.
Yep. Well, it's funny because, you know, I'm not the most organized person at all. I'm the least organized person on my team, but, you know, it's having one or two really strong organized people around you. They have enough to, their cup runneth over for everybody, which is great. You know, the person that's been with me the longest is so organized, doesn't miss deadlines, and like, I don't know what I would do without her. I'd be a wreck. So, but yeah, if it were up to me, it would just be a messy canvas of things, and it'd get done eventually, but not necessarily in the right order, or, you know,
So how big is your team right now?
So it's small. It's me, and I've got a content team of 3. So we've got 2 writers, an editor, and somebody that does the graphics, and then I've got a VA as well.
Nice. It's about the same size as my team. I've got a project manager, or I call him my chief of staff. He's the one who manages all my stuff. He's fantastic. We got 2 part-time people, and then we got a graphic design team that we hire out.
Yep.
That we work with, you know, an individual person on their team pretty regularly. So yeah, it's a great thing. I'm looking at probably expanding the team over the next year or so we can take on more clients. But that was like the thing that unlocked it for me, was realizing that once you had a team, now it wasn't like, my time of allotment was not our bottleneck.
Yep.
Right. And it was a huge thing for me. I was like, suddenly I have more people on my team. I can bring on another client and another client and another client. And if we need to bring on another client, we can add more to the team. And I was like, oh, I was like, I don't know why I never made that connection before. But it was definitely something that unlocked our stuff for that. So how long have you been working with a team?
So since this is really funny, I did this backwards since day one. So back when I first got started with Intentionally Inspirational, maybe like a couple months in, 2 or 3 months in, I hired my first team member, and I wasn't making any money. So my wife is like, what are you doing? I'm like, you're going to have to trust me. And she's like, but I don't even understand what the business is. I haven't figured it out. So here's what's going to happen. Yeah, there's some rough times for the marriage in those periods. I mean, it's no joke. It can be very strenuous if the spouse is not an entrepreneur, doesn't understand the way your mind works. But here was my thought. It's like, Carmen, when I figure this thing out, we're going to get more business than I can handle, and I need to have another person there to help me with these areas. You know what I mean? So eventually it panned off, and I was like, I can actually pay them not with a credit card and actually pay them with business money, which is great. So I've worked with a team for almost the whole 4 years. It's makes me feel good that this year it's been really steady for the people that have been with me. So I don't have anybody full time. I have some people in the 15 to 20 hour a week range, which is great to say, hey, you can contribute to something larger than yourself as brand. You can do it on your time because they are freelancers, but we talk every day. So it's like a family, and you can make some money doing something you enjoy, you know? So that's
Yeah.
worked out well for me. But what's funny is like a year ago, I actually had a bigger team than I did now, but I was, and I'll see if you've had this problem. I was trying to surround myself with other people like me, but the problem is they're too expensive. So I was like, how do I scale this the right way, and how can I do it profitably? So I learned that I can take people that are capable of learning and teach them my way of using active campaigning, teach them my way of using ClickFunnels. And maybe it takes a little bit more time, but it's more cost effective, and everybody still wins. So
Yeah. So
uh,
the way that I've dealt with that is because it's absolutely true, right? So um, I talk about it in terms of copywriting because the metaphor works for me.
yeah.
But you have employees that are I call them headline copywriters, right?
Hmm.
Where you could give them like, hey, here's the thing we want to write about, and then they'll go and write a whole sales letter,
Yeah.
right? And then you have like the body copywriters. There's the ones that are like, hey, I want this. This is what the headline topics should be. This is what the body topics should be. And then they'll go in and they'll do all the work for that. And then you have people that are like template workers, where it's like, hey, here's all the stuff. You just go in and fill in the blanks.
Hmm.
And what's interesting is if, for me anyways, I've noticed if I document all of our processes really well, that includes things like thinking, the thinking behind all of our processes and whatnot, that as I put staff through those things, they start to learn the way that I think about them.
Yep.
And it brings them up from being like a template level copywriter to being a body copywriter to eventually they can learn to be the one who's thinking and asking great questions and figuring things out and whatnot. Um,
Isn't screen share video a great way to train?
oh yeah, yeah. So the way that we do it is we do little 5-minute processes.
Yep.
So we'll take, even if it's a big long process that takes a couple of days to get everything done, is we'll break it down into little 5-minute sections,
Yep.
and then document all those things. So it's like screenshots all the way through, and it's written documentation. And then we turn those into checklists so people can go through the checklist. Here's step one. Here's the document on how to do it. Right, and
Yep.
all the way through. So it works pretty well, and my staff handles all of that for me, which is fantastic. But it also allows us to bring people on and scale them up pretty quick, to go from
Yep.
like, hey, I don't know what your processes are. It's like, hey, we're bringing you on for this process. Here's the whole list of things you need to know on how to do it.
Yep.
And then very quickly, spin it up, which is super cool.
Yep. Absolutely. I'm addicted to Loom, so everything's Loom videos, whether it's training staff or telling clients like what I've actually done in their account. And I love that 5-minute length or less, because beyond that, people's minds are somewhere else.
Yeah.
It's too much. The world's got too many distractions and too much information. I mean, we get hit with it all day long, everybody listening. So bite-sized
Yeah.
pieces.
That's actually why we do the documentation from the video.
Yep.
Is because like the video is really good for recording the process and figuring out how it's done. And then we actually turn it into text with pictures because it's easier for our staff to flip
Yeah.
back and forth
That
with
makes sense.
here's the actual documentation on it, which is really nice.
Yep.
So
Very cool.
yeah. So my next question for you has to do with your common enemy, right? So every superhero has the thing they fight against. And I like to think of this in terms of your actual clients, the ones that bring on you, they hire you for something. And it's something that you regularly run into, like a roadblock you run into with your clients, that if you had a magic wand and you could just wave that magic wand and remove that roadblock, you could get them results better, cheaper, faster, to a higher degree. What would that thing be that you find yourself struggling with constantly with your clients?
It's a great question. I don't have an answer for you. Hmm. Hmm, hmm, hmm. Yeah, I guess what I would go with is sometimes they're so scared. Like you see this all the time where somebody's like working with MailChimp and they want to move just a few automations and like 2 lists over to ActiveCampaign, which I could do in the time that I just said this. And they're
Yeah.
so scared to do that. I'm like, what do you think's going to happen? Like, what do you think the worst case scenario is? But clients will commit to a piece of a strategy, but sometimes they won't just go for all of it. And I don't know what they're scared of. And it's never, you never hear, oh, it's the cost. If you hear it's the cost, you're talking to the wrong people, but it's never the cost. It's some fear of something that's not real. So if people would step out a little more, take some chances, I think they could get, even better results. Because if you just make a great funnel, it's great to look at, but there's no back end built to it. There's no nurturing, no follow-up, no automation. You're missing some of the greatest piece of the funnel. If you have no ongoing strategy with the email beyond the nurture campaigns, what's the purpose of your list, Mr. Customer? And you have these conversations and they'll say, maybe in the future, but like, why? Now's the perfect time. So that's probably what I would say.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we always talk about with our clients. And I tell them all the time, I was like, most businesses, especially in the space I work when, it's all expert brands.
Mm-hmm.
So people who have like their courses and stuff like that they want to sell, is they put all of their business's profitability on the front end conversion piece.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, I've got my ads and they run to my, whatever my conversion piece is. And it's basically convert or die.
Yep.
And then they might have a short reminder sequence after the conversion piece that drives back to it. It's 2 or 3, maybe if we're lucky, 5 emails.
Yep.
And I'm like, what you should have is probably, your conversion piece, a liquidation funnel on the front and an upsell chain on the back. And you should probably have 6 months worth of follow-up that automatically kicks in, doing an offer every couple of weeks that, repitches your same stuff. And the clients that I have who have done that, they're producing leads at a profit. Yep. Right. And the ones who aren't are like, they don't have the same big business. Right. And yep. it's interesting. And it's funny because I've run into the same thing where it's like, I don't know if I'm ready to do that yet. Right. I don't know if I want to put together a 6-month follow-up sequence or a liquidation funnel or build the other products I need to, to fill out, an upsell chain.
Yep.
And I don't get it. Right. Cause they're like, we'll hire you to do something and, and then disagree with you on it.
Yep. I see this sometimes where somebody's like, I want a ClickFunnels built. And it's funny because when they say something like that, I'm like, all right, I already know that they don't really understand what the sales funnel is because they're just talking about a brand. All right. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to educate them, see where they're at. And you'll build what somebody wants and they'll never fight you on the back end with AkATheAlchemist. Because I'll just be honest, ClickFunnels with Actionetics, now follow-up funnels is not impressive to me. It's just not
even a little bit.
Not a little bit. And they know that. If you heard Russell's recent announcement, they're going to focus kind of back on how they got started and probably rely much heavier on third parties anyway, which is a good move. But anyway, clients will get a funnel built until they see how it works and they understand it. And then they have their own idea for traffic. And it's like, okay, I can help you with that. What's your plan? Even if they don't hire you. And sometimes they'll share their plan and you're like, that's not
going to work the way you expect.
What I'll say is like, if you're going to do that, like you'd be better to not spend a dime at all and just focus on organic traffic because you're wanting people to convert and you're wanting to do a brand awareness ad for this other business that's not even related. None of that makes any sense. And people will argue with you and do their own thing. And I had somebody reach out to me recently and she's like, the funnel's not working. I was like, are you still using that traffic strategy I told you not to use? And she's like, yes. I'm like, I could have told you this 3 months ago. In fact, I did. Like, what did you expect? It's just, it's like, why, it's like spending the money on a Ferrari and then trying to fill it up with water instead of gas. It's like, it's a terrible idea. Like, why spend the money on the car if you're not going to put the right fuel in it? So
yeah. And I know those fancy cars, sometimes you need the fancy fuel for.
Water's not going to cut it.
Water's not going to make it. Though I have heard they are working on engines that'll convert water into hydrogen and oxygen and blow that up and move forward.
Honda's had that technology for at least 10 years. So they used to have a concept called the, what is the name of it? I can see the car in my head. It's like maroon. I cannot think of the name, but it ran on water and it was the only byproduct was hydrogen. But you got to think these big oil companies will buy up that technology and bury it in a heartbeat. So
yeah, because I got the money too.
Absolutely.
So it's interesting. We'll see what happens with technology progress for there. That's an entirely different conversation, but
oh yeah,
it's certainly interesting.
Yep.
So if your common enemy is the thing that you fight against, your driving force is the thing that you fight for, right? So we talk about, Spider-Man fights to save New York, Batman fights to save Gotham, or Google fights to index and categorize all the world's information. What is it that you guys at Intentionally Inspirational fight for?
Yeah, I mean, we want to make impact at scale. So not only we find that the biggest things that hold entrepreneurs back, it's not just marketing. It's marketing, it's motivation, it's mindset. It's all those things. So we want to get our message and our services and our teachings out there to as many entrepreneurs as we can. It's not just entrepreneurs, it's even small business as well. But a lot of people just get jammed up and I can't do this, I can't do that. You know, if you're a plumber and you've been a plumber that's a solopreneur your whole life and you've never grown, well, the reason you haven't grown is it's in your head, I promise, because I've talked to multimillionaire plumbers that know how to bring on a team and do stuff. So a lot of people get jammed up. And to get to that next level, it might be mindset, it might be motivation or marketing. So we want to get that message out there and be kind of a beacon of inspiration and resources for all entrepreneurs and small businesses.
Absolutely. That's a good point too, that it's not just marketing. They struggle with like, I don't know what you call it. It's like the 30,000 foot view
Yep.
of what it takes to build a business. And I've run into that a lot, and I'm curious how you help your clients with this. 'Cause it's something that, I know how I do it, but I want to get your sort of like your thoughts when you're talking to someone who's like, hey, I have a thing I want to sell. Right. And they're thinking, I have thing I want to sell equals profits. And you're coming at that going, well, you have to have more than thing and I want to sell. You also have to have an audience that has a problem that wants to solve that problem, that
Yep.
your thing can solve that problem in a unique way. You need to have a marketing message that allows you to get in front of those people and attract them. You need to have a back end that allows you to communicate with them regularly. You can like see the picture of
Yeah.
a whole business. And I'm just curious, what's your approach for helping your clients see the bigger picture?
So I talk about it a lot in the terms of a foundation. So I see this a lot. I want to build a funnel. Here's my idea. And, you know, if it's something I haven't heard of or something different, right away I'm going to say, who are we selling this to? And if they don't know, we've got a problem, right?
Mm,
And especially a lot of times they don't know who they're going to sell it to and they don't have any money for ads. It's like,
yeah.
okay, do you have any kind of a following? Do you have any kind of a list? Okay, so you have no following, no list. You don't know who you're selling it to and you have no money for ads. Let's take a step back here. Okay. So a lot of times it's foundational. You've got to have some kind of a product or service. You've got to know who you're selling it to, and you have to know where you can find them. And there's a lot of great organic options out there as well. So a lot of times, unfortunately, sometimes it's like, hey, we're not ready to work together. You need to focus on these things first, and then you can come back. If people do have some of that stuff figured out foundationally, you know, if somebody wants to promote one piece of their business or one thing, it's making sure they have that digital marketing foundation in place. In my opinion, it's the back end. It's the email marketing piece, because if the back end's broken, nothing else you build matters. It can be pretty, but if it doesn't work right, you're going to miss opportunities and waste money. So it's just taking everything back to the basics. I think about basketball. I played basketball growing up. If you want to be on the high school team and you can't dribble or shoot, we've got a problem. Okay, not saying you can't someday, well, unless you graduate before we get there, but we've got to get those fundamentals in place first. And speaking about it in very simple terms, about, you know, the foundation seems to work pretty well. But people will pick up pieces of this stuff because there's so much information about digital marketing. And a lot of times I find the people I'm talking to are missing major fundamental pieces of things before we can get started, or sometimes we have to shift focus on the first project as well.
Yeah. And I know it's a hard thing too, because you have to for your business, you have to have people who are at a certain place in order for you to be able to help them the best.
Yeah.
So sometimes, you know, unfortunately, it means you have to say no to people.
Yep.
But at the same time, like, you really want to help educate people so you can, you know, create your ideal clients. So you have to help them see where they are and where they need to fit in. And it's interesting because I think, you know, as much as we might love or not love ClickFunnels, their marketing message is that, you know, you're one funnel away.
Yep.
Right. And people see that and they're like, oh, so all I need in my business is a funnel. And I think that does a disservice to people who are newer to the space.
Yep.
Right. Thinking, if they come in thinking, oh, all I need to do is have a funnel, I'll be good to go. And you're like, well, no, that's just their marketing message, and they are a good tool. And it probably does behoove you to have a funnel,
Yep.
but that's just one of 50 pieces you need to have.
Yeah. Funnel's not a business, unfortunately. Yep.
Yeah, a funnel's not a business, right? And like it goes all the way down to like you have to have a mindset and a willingness to take risk. And
Yep.
like it's not a it's still a business. So like one of the things that I regularly talk about um, with my clients is the idea, because I worked in the non-digital marketing space as a marketing director for a number of years. So worked in the solar space, and we were doing marketing and to put, 10 and 20 and 30 and 50, $100,000 solar systems on people's roofs. So high ticket, very personal sales that we were doing. We had to put the marketing messages together for that. And the CEO of that company worked with Microsoft and was on the board of like 12 different companies. So real smart guy. And I got to sit under and learn from him. And one of the things that I learned from him was that every business they're in, they target a 28% margin, right? Meaning that they're spending 72, 73% of all of their dollars on customer acquisition and COGS. And people get into the digital marketing space and they're like, oh, my e-course doesn't cost me anything to deliver. I have no COGS, therefore I have 100% margin. And the first thing that I try to break in my clients is that understanding that you think you're getting into a 100% margin business, because you're not. If you want to run a successful business, your customer acquisition costs are going to be higher than pretty much any other business there is, because you're not selling a physical good. So I coach my clients to expect a 70% cost of customer acquisition. And realizing that in order to afford a 70% customer acquisition, you have to have a front end and a back end, and you have to know how to handle the customers. You have to know where your customers are and how you're going to spend stuff on advertising, and realize that there's like, it's a legitimate business. It's not just, I have a funnel and it's going to make me, 100% margins on my sales. It's not magic, right? It's a business like any other business. You're going to have high customer acquisition costs, and you have to be ready to run the business like a business.
You'll like this. So one of the first guys that ever hired me to build a funnel with ClickFunnels, it paid, four figures for that funnel. So one of my first ones I did full time, I literally remember we built this guy's funnel. It was a nightmare. I underbid it horribly, but you live and you learn, right?
Yeah.
It was like 14 steps. Like, it was ridiculous. Okay. And we got this thing put together, and he was going to spend good money on ads. And I'll never forget this. We launched the ads, and Facebook hadn't approved them yet. And like, they had been waiting for approval for maybe an hour. So none of them had been approved. And he reached out to me and he's like, do we have any sales yet? And I was like, this might be a problem. What I failed to do is I failed to set proper expectations. He was actually down in Vegas and saw Russell present, where Russell sold like $3 million and off stage in that one day.
Yeah.
So he was it was the 10X thing with Grant Cardone. So he was there. So he was all jacked up on that presentation. And he was like, if we build this thing and flip the switch, like, we're going to be, a millionaire overnight. And he actually lived in like Beverly Hills, and he was like talking about the house he was going to buy. And I didn't set proper expectations. So I didn't realize he expected it to happen that way, but that's not how it works. So,
yeah,
but
so Russell has the benefit of having, several 100,000 people who know, like, and trust him already.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's setting proper expectations. That's something else I've had to learn as well.
Yeah. That's a hard game too, right? And it goes far beyond just with your clients. Everything from like, one of the pieces of advice my spiritual mentor growing up gave me was that all contention in every relationship comes down to unmet expectations, and generally unmet unspoken expectations. Yep. Right. So the reason your kid gets in trouble is because he doesn't understand the expectation you had for him. And, problems you have in your relationship come down to, you had an expectation that wasn't getting met. Probably you hadn't spoken about it. Yeah. And it's interesting how that applies all the way through your business, and how important it is, especially at the beginning, to set up those expectations. So like, one of the things I've done is I've started putting in our proposals, there's like expectations. I'm like, here's what your expected contributions are. Here's what my expected contributions are. Here's what you're looking for audience, what we're expecting to spend on advertising. Even if they're not hiring me for the advertising, I'm like, here's, you should hire this, someone who has this skill set and is willing to do these things, right? So we try to get the expectations out all the way at the front.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's smart. It changes the whole experience for both of you, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So We're going to talk about something that's a little more practical, all right? So, and talk about your hero's tool belt. And this might be, we've talked about a little bit, but practical tools you use in your business to do the work that you do, right? Maybe you got a big magical hammer like Thor, or a bulletproof vest like your neighborhood police officer, or maybe you just really love how, Evernote helps you put everything together. What are some tools that let you run your business that
Yep.
you couldn't do without, whether that's team management, client onboarding, or actual delivery of services?
Yep. So I'm a huge fan of Zoom. I use Zoom. It's my preferred communication method of choice. Yeah, I try to avoid the phone. I think the 3 years of inside sales in corporate America kind of burned me from the phone. So I
Yeah.
love Zoom. I love Slack, not only for team communication, but retainer clients get a Slack workspace as well. That's great. Try to push people away from email. Messaging is the way to go for sure. What else? Loom for the screen share videos. I love Canva. I love Buffer. Calendly. Oh boy, if I could buy Calendly, I would just purchase the company. I'd put it in a jar on my shelf.
I'd
So,
be like, this one is my favorite. You know
yep.
what's funny about that is the calendar has been one of the only things that has been mentioned by almost every single person we've had on our show,
Really.
is how important their calendar is to them, that they
Yep.
live and die and breathe by their calendar.
Yep. It's something new I've been doing recently is even current clients, like I won't do this ever again, but I don't give anybody a recurring meeting. I've got one business venture I do with a buddy. He has a recurring meeting, but no clients get recurring meetings. Everything is by appointment only because stuff changes. And after I get stood up a few times, it's like, this person's not respecting my time. I'm not doing standing meetings.
Hmm.
You can book a time like everybody else. So I use a podcast calendar a lot, and I use a 20-minute new client calendar. Even for current clients, I use that one all the time. But it's great because Calendly's mobile app's awesome, and then the desktop piece is great. I never have issues. I almost never get stood up for anything. It's just saves so much time. I think you just come across more professional, and people take you more seriously as well. So
Yeah, I do the same thing. I have clients that are like, they'll text me and they're like, "Hey, when can we meet today?" And I'm like, "Here you go. Here's the meeting link." It's
yeah,
the same one. It's
today's
always
not going
there.
to be on there.
Yeah, today's not going to be on the thing, but here's my link. You're welcome
Yep.
to book a time. But yeah, it's good, and it's for me, right? Because I
Yep.
can't, um, I can't run my life if I don't have the calendar set up in a certain way, right? Because I have time for my family and time for my
Yep.
kids and that kind of stuff, and I can't just drop everything to pick up and do a call with you, even if we're on a retainer relationship. It's like, hey, we got to actually plan this stuff and show up on the
Yep.
calendar. So I do actually do some standing meetings with clients I've had for a long time.
Yep.
Just like check-on calls that we do on a weekly basis.
Yep.
But they're, at this point, those clients are like, if they were going to stand me up, they'd let me know 2 days ahead of time.
Yeah. Yeah. But if somebody stands you up 2 or 3 times, you're going to stop taking that seriously. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Here's what's funny about something you said, kind of unrelated, but I'm just going to run with it here. When I first started going after this stuff full time, you're in that mindset of just like hunger. Like, I got to take anything I can get. I got to make it work. I need that revenue. But I found myself, we'll say, even in the early part of this year, I found myself chatting with clients late at night, weekends, holidays, and my wife would be like, "God, is it like, when is this going to change? Like, when's it going to go back? And like, when are you going to get some boundaries, some separation here?" And I was thinking, I can't. I gotta please them. They pay the bills and all this stuff. Well, late August this year, apparently God had a little wake up call for me. I woke up actually I was sitting right here. I think it was on the 28th. I had Taco Bell for dinner, and I was eating this big chocolate bar, like one of these like Swiss bars, that you buy at the grocery store. It's like $3 or $4 a bar. And my stomach started to hurt. And I was like, it's maybe not the best choice of dinner, but stomach pain feels a little strange. So I got up, walked to my bedroom, and kind of doubled over in pain. I'm like, something's not right. So I'm going to bed, which I'm a night owl. I don't ever go to bed because I don't feel well. That's not like me. So my wife's like, that's weird. I wake up in the middle of the night, screaming in pain, go to the ER, and like, you have food poisoning. And I'm like, I don't have the normal food poisoning symptoms. You sure it's not something else? And they're like, it's probably, it could be appendicitis. We can do a CAT scan, but it's not necessary. It's your call. And I was like, I guess I won't do it. So a few days later, my appendix exploded in my sleep. So I woke up in a lot of pain. This is this September, so into this September. So I missed the first half of the month. I don't remember. In and out of the hospital. Long story short, I pretty much lost a month. I couldn't do anything for my business. And I always worried that if I didn't answer those weekend texts and calls and stuff, everything would fall apart. But what I found is I was able to let some clients know, like, hey, this is what's going on. And people were understanding, and my team stepped up, and I still have a business to talk about. So it was like in my mind, I couldn't have boundaries. And then after that, we actually went on a cruise for 10 days because it's been scheduled for a year. So all this time away from the business, and guess what? I still have a business. So after all that, I'm changed a little bit. And it's just what you said. It's like, okay, the family is very important. So instead of just saying that, you're going to use the calendar or we're not talking. I don't care if I've known you for 10 years or we have a new business call today. These are the rules you play by. If you don't like them, go work with somebody else. And I'm not being rude, but I have to be direct and say, this is my life. And guess what? It works. It works just fine.
What's interesting about that is I've had that conversation with clients, and I'm like, hey, this is the way I do it. And I will coach them and be like, I expect that you should do the same thing.
Absolutely.
Right? Because the businesses, like a lot of the people that I'm working with, they're running a business themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're running this business so you can live the life that you want. Right. Yep. And if you're letting your business get in the way of your life instead of being a supplemental part of it, then you have that problem as well. I was like, this is how I deal with it. So I'll actually coach them through, like, this is what we do. This is why we do it. Right. I won't take your calls after 5. Right. And it's not because I couldn't. I can. Right. I could take calls after 5. And if there's an emergency or something, I'll happily hop on the phone with you. If something's like, we're running $1,000 a day in ads and something explodes, we'll take care of it. Right.
Yeah.
It's like, but for normal, like everyday stuff.
Yeah.
It's like after 5 o'clock, that's my family's time. Yep. And so you go through the calendar link, you pick a time. If it's not available day, pick tomorrow, right? It's not going to be the end of the world.
Absolutely.
And that kind of stuff. So yeah, I totally get that. And it's something that I had to do as well. Cause I remember early in my business, same thing, right? If someone was like, hey, I need a logo done, you're like, I can do that, right? You'll do anything, right? Just to pay the bills. But once you sort of really hone in on what your business is and the value you can provide for people, you're able to be a lot. Your business can really help support your lifestyle instead of being a hindrance to it.
It's amazing how you get to the point, and I'm sure you've done this as well, where you start finding yourself saying no to most opportunities, but yet the business still grows.
Yeah.
And it's about putting your time and your energy and your talents into the most profitable places you can with clients who are going to actually let you do what you do best.
Yeah.
You don't need a whole lot of those each month to make things go around comfortably, but you can bury yourself with 80 hours of work a week and be miserable the whole time as well. There's two extremes there. But
and one of the other things I've noticed too is as you say no more, you get more opportunities.
Oh yeah, it makes
which is counterintuitive.
More. Yeah, absolutely. It's like it's like the open and close cart sequence for products. It's so powerful. Say you're running a webinar and you've got a course, but after this particular webinar, the course is only available for 72 hours. In the first 24 hours, there's early bird incentives. Maybe it's cheaper and there's more bonuses. That kind of stuff makes people act. I mean, we're about to see traditional retail America do the same thing they do every year with Black Friday and Cyber Monday and the holidays, and it's going to work. It's going to work on, you know what I mean? My wife will do stuff sometimes and she'll be like, I know what they're doing. You do this stuff. I know what they're doing, but I'm doing it anyway. And I was like, go ahead.
I tell people all
every time.
I tell people all the time that persuasion is effective whether or not you know what's going on. So good persuasion always works, whether or not you're aware of the persuasion. It's true because it's the way we function. It's really amazing to see how you can apply those things and grow your business. And I've noticed just personally that once you start saying no, you start to get known for the thing that you do really well. And as you get, I think the reason it happens is because you start to get known for that, it's easier to refer you. right? So if you have the guy who's like, I help people with everything, or you have the guy who's like, I help real estate agents drive sales leads from open houses, and you run into a real estate agent who's like, man, I really can't figure out the open houses. You're like, I know exactly the guy to refer you
Yep.
to, right?
Absolutely.
You become a lot easier to refer. So the more you say no to broader opportunities, the more opportunities come your way, which is, I know it's counterintuitive, but it's an important point.
Oh, it's absolutely. Anytime I talk to somebody new and they're like, yeah, I'm a Jack or a Jane of all trades in digital marketing, I'm like, oh boy, you've been doing this 6 months or less. I already know. Because if
Yeah.
you get into it deep enough, that is not the place that most people I know want to be. It's too broad,
Yeah, it's too big of a thing, and you can't be good at any of it.
No, I agree.
Yeah. So and so when someone's like, yeah, I'm good at all of it, you're like, no, you're not. It's like you're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, even if you are savant and you are really good at a lot of things, you're still not good at all of it. Right?
No, you can't
It's
be.
just not. You just can't be there. It's too big of a space. And even people that are at the top of their game, right? We're watching the world championships for gymnastics, because my mom teaches and coaches gymnastics, right? And they're going into getting ready for the Olympics. And what is her name? Simone Biles, probably one of the best female gymnasts that's ever existed.
Mm-hmm.
And she still has, the events that she's better at than other ones.
Yep.
Right. And she's performing at the top of her game and is one of the best people to ever have blessed the earth
Yep.
with her skills. And she's still not good at everything. Right.
Yep.
So, anytime you hear that, I'm good at all of it, then you're like, no, you're not.
You know what? It's kind of goes along the same thing as saying no to stuff is increasing your prices. You want to talk about a counterintuitive thing.
Yeah.
So I told my wife, I don't remember what the price point was, but I was like, hey, this is what we charge now. Like, we're going to take it to here. She's like most people, oh, no, don't do that. People won't pay it. And I said, okay, with that mentality, Bentley would never sell cars. Ferrari would never sell cars, because you could buy a Corvette and have a fast car, or you could spend 4 times as much and get a Ferrari and maybe not get any more performance. So why do people buy Ferraris?
Yeah.
People like buying expensive things and services. They really do.
Yeah.
There is an exclusivity thing that it's very counterintuitive, but I have no interest in competing with the 99%. I don't care what other people in my industry charge. I don't pay attention to, I don't even know who my competition is. I don't pay any attention to what other people are doing. I don't care.
Yeah. I really find that interesting, because I'm that way. I'm the kind of person who'll be like, if you've got 3 options, I'll be like, I want the most expensive one, because it's the most expensive one.
Yep.
Right.
It's super powerful, man.
Yeah. And part of that is because, I've worked really hard to get my business to a point where I can afford to do the things I want to do.
Sure.
And so I avail myself of those opportunities when they come, right? It's because, as far as I'm concerned, I've gotten to a point where I can do that. Right. So I do. And, I'm the same way, even it's down to like, you got the $5 hammer or the $20 hammer at the Home Depot store. I'm buying the $20 hammer because it's going to last forever.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting to see how that works in business, because I had the same thing going on in my business. I had, oh man, it's embarrassing to say this, but I had a couple of clients that, when I first got started, I was like, I had one client, I took them from $4,000 a month to $40,000 a month in sales.
Wow. Yeah.
I charged them $500 to do that. And then I was like, I had another client that I did helped him strategize on their webinar and do a whole bunch of stuff. And we got the front end and the back end thing set up and got it all going. I charged them $500. We did it $125,000 in sales in one webinar. We repeated it 6 weeks later and made it another $125,000. So we did 250 grand in sales, and I charged them $500 for that each time. So $1,000 for
He's
quarter
like,
million
I
in
love
sales.
you.
Yeah. And I was like, man, lesson repeated until lesson learned kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm banging my head against the wall, and I hired a coach, and I was like, what am I doing wrong in my business? He was like, raise your effing prices. And I was like, really? I paid you $6 grand for you to tell me to raise my prices? He's like, yes. And so very next day went out and, raised my prices. I 10x my prices, and immediately got a sale. Right? And what you find out is those clients are better to work with. They understand
Oh,
their business
so much
more.
better. Yeah.
They don't question everything you say because they're like, I'm hiring you for your expertise, right?
Yep.
So
That's always a good
do
line.
your
When you
thing,
hear that, you're like, thank God. Yep.
right? Like, I'm hiring you because you're good at this. So you do
Yep.
what you're good at. I'll do what I'm good at. And what that's also helped me with is my messaging, right?
Yep.
It's like, hey, this is the thing that I'm really good at. This is the thing I can help you with. And if you're going to hire me, you hire me for that expertise and not for other things, right? And
Yep.
so I think it really helps clarify your business when you raise your prices for that kind of stuff. And what's interesting though is you can't just willy nilly raise your prices, right? You have to earn it. You have to actually have the skill set that that backs it up, if that makes sense.
Yep. You also have to be confident in your pricing. So I had a conversation with a guy 2 weeks ago. It was for a funnel build, and I started talking to him, and then he realized, like, hey, I don't understand what an offer is. Okay, you're going to help me develop the offer. He knows who he's targeting, which is good, and he knows what he's trying to sell. So that's always a start. But so we started talking a little bit more, and he's like, we're talking about things nobody else has talked to me about. So he's like, we need to talk about your price. Okay, what do you need to talk about? Your payment options, or what is there to talk about? He's like, we need to lower it. And I was like, that's not an option, my friend. It's not an option at all. And he's like, well, this is what I have budgeted for it. And I said, you know what? I don't want to offend you. He's from New York, so I'm thinking he can take it. But your budget's not my problem. You know what I mean? Your budget is not my problem.
Yeah.
It's not. So you can hire somebody to work at that rate. It's just not going to be me. And I'm telling people this because I'm encouraging you to be brave with your pricing. Don't be stupid with it. Be brave with it, but you got to believe in yourself. You got to believe in your process and what you're doing, and obviously get people results. But he came to me about a week later and he said, hey, I'm going to come at you one more time. You know, how can you justify your price? And I said, because I can. I'm going to grow my business with or without you. I'd love to work with you, but if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. And he said, I'll pay it. No problem. It's really weird. There's no more value added. It was just a confident stance, and I wasn't bluffing, and it works out almost every time, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy, but it does create a good working relationship that is not started with a discount. It changes everything.
Yeah.
It changes the relationship, I promise. So
Yeah. And it's one of the things that I've noticed too, as we've gotten into, the level of business we've hit, is now that people are coming to me because they're like, hey, I've seen your results in the marketplace and I've heard from people who work with you, and they're like, they get on the phone with me and they get to the end of the call and they're like, what do you charge? And I'm like, here's what our rates are and how we do our thing.
$500.
Yeah, $500. So I'll tell them what my rates are, and they're just like, okay, where do I sign? Right. And the sales calls get easier.
Oh yeah.
Right. It's easier to sell a $2,500 a month retainer contract with a percentage of profits nowadays than it was for me to sell someone $500 to help them make
Isn't
a
that
$250,000.
crazy?
Yeah.
Isn't that the craziest thing? If your prices are too low, a good indicator is every person you talk to tries to fight you and bargain the price down. It's like, this isn't a garage sale. Like, are you kidding me? I
Yeah.
had a guy the other day was squabbling. I don't like to do low ticket projects, but I know that if it's the right project, it has a very good chance to lead into the retainer in the longer relationship, right? So you got to pick and choose. But I had a guy arguing over $150 with me. And on principle, I was like, I would rather have zero. Like, I'm not doing it because this is not a garage sale. And we didn't work together, and we're both probably better off because of it. But it's like you say, it creates time in your schedule and opportunity for you to work with clients that do get it and do pay more. So
Yeah. And it's a big world out there. The clients that are a good fit for you
yeah,
are out there. And that's one of the other things that, like, I used to be scared of competition. It's like,
you have
I
no
can't
competition,
like,
my friend.
yeah, there is no competition, right? And there's so much business. And it's like one of the things that I tell my clients all the time is, like, they'll get something and they'll get started and they'll start getting sales, and they'll get someone who's like, they didn't want to buy from them. I'm like, they'll get upset about that. I'm like, that person is just not your customer. And there's nothing wrong with having people that aren't your customer. Right?
Yeah.
There's way more people who aren't your customer than people who are. And a good marketing message is going to filter those for you. So that's exactly what's supposed to happen. Is some of these people are going to be like, I want this, but I don't want whatever XYZ. Just don't sell to them.
Yep.
Like, it's not a big deal. Like, there's enough people for you to have a market full of the right people.
Yep. And it's great that you said that, because on your landing page, your website, you're very specific about who you're talking to, which is great. You've done a great job there. Clarifying your message, as Donald Miller would say. And you know exactly if you're in the right place or the wrong place there. If somebody gets there and they're like, no, that's not me, off they go, but you didn't want to talk to them
Yeah.
anyway. So.
I have a formula for that. All of my clients have a little thing at the top of their website. I call it the give formula, but it's a way to put together your USP. And my goal with all of my clients is that the first hero banner on the top of your website, someone should read that and then think to themselves, yes, this person can help me, or no, they can't. Like, I want to get to know as fast as possible.
Yep.
With all of your marketing messages. They're like, nope, that's not for me, right? It's the whole, do you suffer from mesothelioma? If so, please listen to the next 30 seconds of this message, right? That's the way we approach a lot of our marketing stuff. Is we want to call out to the people who are or suffering from the problem we can solve, and then everyone else we want to just ignore our marketing messages.
Yep, it's good advice. Smart.
Yeah. So let me move the conversation on a little bit and talk about your own personal heroes, right? So Frodo had Gandalf, Luke had Obi-Wan, Robert Kiyosaki had his rich dad. Who were some of your heroes? Were they real life mentors? Were they peers who were a couple of years ahead of you, or speakers or authors? And how important were they to what you've accomplished so far in your business?
Yeah, I would say my heroes in the entrepreneurial world are people I've never met. So people I look up to, Russell Brunson, obviously. Some people, I guess, older generation like Dale Carnegie, how to win friends and influence people is so smart. Napoleon Hill, obviously, Think and Grow Rich is really cool. Other people that I look at, like Pat Flynn, this guy's built a great business. Steven Larson, who worked at ClickFunnels, I really like what he's doing. He's an up and comer now, but I pay attention to that. There's John Lee Dumas. There's some people I watch. Ramit Sethi.
Fire Nation.
Yeah, there you go. Ramit Sethi's another one. So there's some people I watch that I consider at a much higher level of success than me. It's interesting because I don't like everything all of them do, but you take your bits and your pieces. But I'm weird with this stuff. I don't spend too much time digging into what these folks are up to. I don't spend as much time consuming content as I once did. I used to spend too much time consuming content and not doing enough. So I've been more in the mode this year of going after the revenue, making sure I've got a stable, scalable business. But those are some of the folks. As far as people in my own life, some of my clients that I've worked with have got really great stories and are just further down the path, different industries. But yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's interesting because everyone answers that particular question very differently, right? Yep. Sometimes it's like, hey, it was my mom or it was my grandma that really put me on this path, or it's, someone like Gary Vaynerchuk. And, the influences in our life are always very different. And it's interesting to see, who, who's influencing what people, and realize that, influencers come from all over the place.
Yeah. What's interesting about me is like my family and friends were the opposite. They're like, don't do this. You can't succeed. The more you tell me what I can't do, the more pissed off I get. And when I get pissed off, I get things done.
I'm with you on that.
Yep. So Frank Sinatra said it best. The best revenge is massive success.
There's nothing better for me than someone telling me you can't do that. Because it's almost a complex I have. Where like when you're walking on the hiking trail and they're like, don't walk over here. I'm like, really? I really want to walk over there.
Don't touch the red button.
Yeah. Don't touch the red button. I'm like, so you really want me to touch the red button, right? Like that's the kind of person I am. I'm like, I want to touch the red button. What is it? Nemo, don't touch the butt. He touched the butt, right? Like that's me. I'm the guy who's over there touching the butt, the boat. But anyways, it's definitely a motivator for me as well. And for me, my family has always they've been supportive, but they're like supportive, but reserved. They're like, I understand that you're insane. And like, you can continue to be insane. Like, I don't know what you do or how you do it and at this point, they're just like, you continue to get results. And like, so like, I can't tell you not to do it anymore. But they're like, I still don't quite understand. I think that just comes from, most of my family comes out of the employee mindset and not the entrepreneur mindset. So I don't have in my family a lot of entrepreneurs that I can go to and look up to. So I have to kind of get those from outside sources. But anyways, like I've had to use that as fuel to continue pushing forward. It's like, even when you don't have someone's full support, like your mom or your dad or, whatever, especially when you're young, um, it's definitely an interesting thing to push through.
Yep. The mentality I have now is, who's going to stop me? What are they going to do about it? You know what I mean? Because realistically, it's all the 6 inches between your ears. So
yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and bring this home for our listeners and talk about your guiding principles. What are the top 1 or 2 principles or actions that you use sort of every day that you think contribute to the success and influence that you guys enjoy with your company? Maybe something you wish you'd known when you started out.
Yeah, the lesson I would give younger me is patience, my friend. So for you guys listening who want it now, I love the hunger, but you got to be patient, because a lot of times that timeline is not in your control. So if you set a finite timeline and it doesn't happen, you may not like the outcome. So position yourself so that you can be patient and let things happen. The other piece is kind of going back to what I said earlier about my kryptonite, is avoid the shiny object syndrome and focus. So behind me where I'm sitting now, I've got a whiteboard. I use Asana to power the details of the business, but I like the whiteboard because I try to create 3 to 5 bullet points a day that I'm going to accomplish every day, come hell or high water, that keep me focused on taking care of the clients and bringing in that revenue. So stay focused on the things that matter. Revenue matters. No revenue, no business.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really love the first thing you said there, is driving towards that business, and how, how you have to, I don't know, the timeline is just, it's a hard thing to understand because you have to set goals and drive towards them.
Yep.
And we tend to work better driving towards short-term goals.
Yep.
Right? Like a 90-day goal is easier to think about and take action on than a 10-year goal. But the reality is you're going to vastly overestimate what you can accomplish in a year and vastly underestimate what you can accomplish in 10.
Yep.
Right? So you have to have a willingness to put in 10 years of work and then work in 90-day chunks.
Yep.
Right.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
I always hated the question in corporate America when you're being interviewed and somebody from HR would say, so tell me about your 5-year goals. I got to the point with that where I was like, I don't have any idea what's going to be going on in 5 years. This question really doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Because things change so much that, like you say, I tend to focus, like, ultimately I know where I want to go. My obsession is impact and scale. I want to get this message and this brand out as far and as wide as I can. I want to help clients and help teach people who want to learn what you and I do. But I just lost the rest of my thought. My mind just went blank. It does that sometimes.
That's all right. The train left the station.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were talking about the 5-year plan and working in small chunks.
Yeah. So I know the ultimate place I want to go, but like you say, I tend to find myself focusing. I do like that quarter, focusing quarter by quarter, because like you say, things can go way slower or sometimes way faster than you think. But a lot of times I'll even break it down just week by week. And, obviously day by day, every night I write the plan for the next day. And for the most part, I get everything done. And it just keeps me, my timeline from speaking about something to doing is extremely short. If I say I'm doing a webinar soon, I'm probably going to have it started tomorrow and probably have it done in a few weeks, because that's what I do. So I tend to try to keep that momentum going, and it's easy to do on daily wins.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we've learned from traveling too, is that it's hard to, like, if just as an example, this last summer we went from San Diego to Canada. And that was our trip. So it's really easy to say, hey, our goal is to get to Canada. Mm-hmm. What's really hard is to say, every week planned out from here until Canada is all booked and done and taken care of. That's very difficult to do. It's very difficult to stick to, because life happens, crap happens, things break. You have to adjust plans. So what's really a lot easier is to say, hey, our destination, right, our 10-year place is we're going to get to Canada. And on a weekly basis, we build and adjust our plan to get there.
Yep.
right? And it allows us to travel the way we want, and like so we have like vague ideas of where we're going to be for like the next season, right? We're going to go to Southern California for winter, and then we're going to go to Florida for the springtime, and we're going to go up the East Coast next summer, right? Like those are arching like plans, but we don't have anything booked or anything thought about. And I like to mirror that in my business. It's like, hey, we're on our way to this destination, and we're going to sort of build the plan, the map as we go.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
So, yeah. Okay, so last thing we do on the show, something I call the Heroes Challenge, and it's pretty simple, and it's but just this: do you have someone in your life or in your network that you think has a cool entrepreneurial story? Who are they? First names are fine, and why do you think they should come share their story on our show? Just the first one that pops into your head.
Yeah. It doesn't matter how far they are in their process.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So I've got somebody, Corey.
And why do you think he should come share his story on the show?
Because he's he's another one of these guys that's not scared to go for it. It's not scared to quit corporate America and put it on the line and go after his passion. He's really passionate about what he does. Really entertaining guy to talk to. Learning some of the tough lessons early, and I think he would be a good fit for the show. I think you and your audience would enjoy him. So
awesome, yeah. So we'll see if we can connect later about hooking up with Corey and see if we can get him on the show.
okay.
Last thing, thank you so much for coming on the show, Jason. Really appreciate it. It's been an interesting conversation. Where can people find you if they're interested in maybe listening to your podcast, or if they're thinking to themselves, you know what, I really like his approach to building funnels and digital marketing? How would they reach out, and who are the ideal type of clients for you?
Yep. So I appreciate you having me on the show. It's been great. If you want to find out anything about me or the podcast or what we do, intentionallyinspirational.com is kind of the home base for that. You can find out everything you'd want to know there. People I'd love to work with is anybody in business who has experienced some success, looking to get to that next level, or maybe find themselves stuck. I'd love to jump on a quick call with you and see where you are and see if I can help you get where you want to go.
Awesome. So you heard him. It's intentionallyinspirational.com. If you are looking for help with your digital strategy and funnels, definitely take a chance to reach out to Jason and his team. Sounds like they're doing some really cool stuff. And last thing, Jason, do you have any final words of wisdom before we hit the done record button on this episode?
Yeah. I'm just going to echo some of what I said from the bottom of my heart, guys. I know you're probably going after your dreams, right? And that's awesome. I love that. I'm the biggest fan of it. You're going to have times where you feel an inch tall, right? Everybody goes through that. Richard feels it. I feel it. People at the highest levels of success feel it. Don't stop going for it, though. There's nothing more heartbreaking than somebody who gives up and walks away, because guess what? You have no idea what tomorrow had in store for you. So keep going after your goals. Be patient, and see when you get there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Jason. Really appreciate it. And we will talk again soon.
Awesome. Thank you. Take care.